Casey.
Shiggity Shane.
Man, let me tell you something. If you 40K fanatics out there want to hear me stumble over words and sound tired, today is the day. If you thought, I want to hear Shane sound like an idiot.
Just listen to the sultry sounds of his voice.
Yeah, man, because I'm feeling some kind of way. I don't think I'm ill, but I feel illish.
A lot's been going around. I've been
Something's
sick
going on.
twice in the last 3 weeks.
They try. You think they're trying to get us ready for that voting?
I think it's trying to get ready for spring. Spring is this month, and all that pollen's going to be in the air, and I'm going to be dead on my feet, popping Benadryl in a haze for like a month and a half. So who knows what's going to happen?
I heard that the Benadryl has been heavily linked to the Alzheimer's. Frequent Benadryl usage. Yeah. Come to 40K Fanatics. Get some medical advice that you absolutely should follow at your own risk. Your own risk. Not our risk. We are not doctors.
Well, I was a medic.
Oh, well, then you tell me. Benadryl taker?
They don't teach you much about medicine, just saying.
Remind me what we were talking about. It's already got him.
Talking about you might be right.
Open the bits box. Man, Blood Bowl has come to the Shane household.
What's the tea, sis?
What?
You haven't heard that?
No.
That's like a phrase.
Is it?
Yeah, you like it's like what's the gossip?
Oh, yeah, you want me to spill the tea?
Yeah, spill the tea, sis.
Okay, so Blood Bowl has come to the Shane household.
And we're actually drinking tea.
Yeah, my tea was too hot because my mouth is very delicate. You can't just jam it in there hot.
Your wife is loving this commentary right now.
It's going to be great. She's getting into the Blood Bowl, and to join my Elven Union Blood Bowl team, she has chosen diversity. And she's picked the Wood Elves.
Ooh, really?
So there's 24 elves going to be knocking around.
A team.
Oh yeah. There's three or four elven teams. So there's the Elven Union, which are like straight ahead. There's the Wood Elves, which is what she's got. They're green and wearing bodysuits. There are the Dark Elves, which you could call elves or not, who are just goth. And then I think there's one more who are like fancy panted.
High elves?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it, I think. But she got the Wood Elves, and I busted out the airbrush to make them all green. So the idea is, since there's a dozen of them, I built them all. I took them outside, primed to black, zenithalled white. Both of those out of rattle can. Brought them inside, put a dark green Army Painter Air. I love those. I highly recommend the Army Painter Air range of airbrushable paints because they pretty well run straight out of the tube or out of the pot or out of the dropper bottle is what they come in. See, I told you I'd be all over the place.
Tubes.
So I got them all dark green, and by the last one, my airbrush had gotten so clogged that paint started to come out of the trigger. And I thought, well, stop the presses. This is going to require a full breakdown. So I broke the whole thing down. I took a lighter green and I hit them again, this time up around their top half and on their butts and other bulbous areas.
Okay.
All right?
Bring out those.
And so then I handed them to Valerie.
Flashing the cheeks.
This is kind of her first official painting project, right? So she took 3 of them at once and batch painted those 3, only having to do the boots, the hair, the skin, the gloves, right?
Apple bottom jeans.
The boots and the fur. And they look great because we've already baked in all those interesting values of, like I say, these green bodysuits. So the Wood Elves, with exception of 2 of them, are dressed head to toe, most of them in long sleeves, in these green jumpers. And so those already look excellent, and they're going to be really good. And coming from, shout out to these people, Mats by Mars. This is a guy up in Chicago. Go to matsbymars.com. He will make you a custom Blood Bowl pitch, and I've got one on the way with the 40K Fanatics shield at center field.
What's the tag?
Mats by Mars.
use codes 40K Fanatics to get a discount at Matt's by Mars.
Not true. Not true.
Not true. We're not sponsored anyways. He's just a quality guy for doing this. So
Now these are
we owe him a shout out.
These are not neoprene, however. They are vinyl. So we're going to see. They claim the vinyl lays flat, and I think it may lay flat as long as it lays flat.
As long as it lays flat.
But we're going to find out, and it's going to be awesome because it's going to have the 40K logo, or 40K Fanatics logo in the middle, and that's how you make a home game.
Well, Shane, you are forgetting one more thing.
What?
What? How was your weekend? Did you get that game in that you were talking about?
I did get a game in this week. I got a couple of Crusade games in, and I'm loving the Crusade in the Pariah Nexus.
Boy, I would love to jump in on that Crusade.
Yeah, you want to come over Sunday and play?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so you're going to come over Sunday and play.
Yeah,
Now,
mine works.
I got to run D&D at 8:30. So you got to be out
8
here by
a.m..
then. No, in the PM. D&D at 8:30 p.m. So you got to
because you're a night guy.
I got to have you done and dusted by then. And I think you need to check on your gene
Right,
seed.
my gene seed is running rampant.
I'll continue to talk to the people about the bits box while you do that, because I've also finally gotten some new MCP models. They dropped 6 new characters of the X-Men, and all I'm running is X-Men and their vague affiliates, so just guest stars or cameos that have been in the cartoon. And now to add to that, I got that boy Kurt Wagner, Nightcrawler, got him painted. Did a little.
Is that his last name?
Yeah.
Wow, I knew his first name. I didn't know his last name.
I did me a little sub-assembly action because he comes on his bamfing smoke. So,
I love how you know the sound effect.
well, it also comes with a bit that is bamf.
Does it say Banff?
It does, and you can stick it.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
You can stick it to the front of the smoke. I chose not to because my smoke turned out really good, and I'm going to tell you guys how. I start all of these cartoon characters because I want them to be so vibrant, primed white, which is a job in itself. But his smoke, I thought it'll look good if I prime it black, zenithal white, spray hot pink all over it. And so that's what I did. And then I stuck him on, blended his little attachment point, so deftly as I am able. And then I got to painting, and he looks so good. He comes with Bishop, who was the dude from the future that absorbs energy.
I thought that was Cable.
No, Cable's the guy that has the I think it's like a transforming gun or something, and he's got the eye.
Yeah.
Cable's been out for a long time. He comes with Domino, but I got Bishop.
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 Yeah, the black guy
Who's
with
the one in the future.
Yeah. He comes from the future back in time to
Mad
warn
cool
everybody.
dreadlocks.
Mad cool dreadlocks. He comes with that second head option that is bald, and I'm like, I don't know what that's for.
Yeah, right. You got to do dreadlocks.
You got to. Mandatory, because it's not just like braids or dreads. It's a mullet of braids / dreads. He's awesome.
He's really dope.
And then I got Professor X.
Finally,
Professor X in his chair, going to be leading the team. I had the homie Lane over last week, and I still have yet to win a solitary game of MCP because I always play Lane, and that's not a good way to win. What happened in your bits box this week?
oh boy. So yes, work's been taking the big load from me lately. I've been crazy busy and obsessed. Getting yelled at, customer service, all that stuff is crazy. But I did have some hobbying that I've gotten done, a lot of social media relations. We are doing our orc competition this week, so go on to our socials, either my TikTok, Prime Paint Wah. I've also got the Instagram and then the YouTube page. We've also got Twitter and then like everything. Just go on there, find the photos, and there should be a poll somewhere posted on there, and give us your votes, because me and Shane worked really hard to paint a knob each, and we're posting to see who is the winner. So let us know what you think in the comments. Put it in the poll. Also, community shout out today. We did a Whip Wednesday where I showed off an AdMech, I don't know, what would you call it, like a power relay
piece of terrain. I forget what they call that
piece
thing.
of terrain, authentic 40K.
It's a barrel with grating on it.
like a big stack on it, like a small chimney, a fan. Anyways,
It's heavy and obscuring in Kill Team.
Yes, it's really cool, and that's going to be for our local hobby shop. So I just decided to do that in lieu of payment for a few things because I'm a nice guy. We also did a community appreciation post for Valerie. Shout out to the homie Valerie.
Never heard of her.
Shout out to the homie Valerie and her demonettes in the Ariel Little Mermaid style of painting. Check those out on all of our socials. I posted those because I like hearing about 40K, but apparently I love hearing more about other people's paint jobs. Come on, guys, get on our socials. Post your photos. Let us know what you are doing. We crave it. We love it. Need it. Plastic crack. I'll sell the copper in my walls.
I also started on my Chaos Sorcerer and Terminator armor.
Oh, how's that going?
Not good. So if you go back in the warp through time and space, you can find an episode where I talked about how Citadel paint colors are dumb, and that was largely
You said paint
clickbaity.
names were dumb.
Yeah. And that was largely clickbaity. However, I do not buy a ton of paints.
You don't.
I can't.
But you like Liquitex and Vallejo, right?
Yeah, I like the Vallejo. What I kind of tend to do is just buy a color that's in the ballpark of something that I feel like I'm going to need, and then adjust brightness up or down to my needs, right?
Non-STC compliant paints.
Yeah, and a lot of times I'll end up with like doing undercoating or whatever and then glaze on top of that. So whatever the paint is on the palette or is in the bottle is not necessarily what I end up with. And that works well. However, I want, in a similar vein to my Chaos Lord, not in Terminator armor, who I did as a Night Lord, I want this Sorcerer to be a 1,000 Sun. The idea being that his entire squad has been decimated, then Abaddon's come through and been like, "We got a spot for you."
We offer dental vision and a pay raise. Let's go.
That's right. You can lose all of those things for the low price of your eternal soul. And but I needed to find that 1,000 Sun teal, and I don't think I nailed it. I sprayed it on. It's on there. He is a color of teal. So far, that's all that I've done. I've done that, and I've done black over all of what will be gold trim, because I find that the gold true metallic does not go very well over anything but black.
I've got a bottle of 1,000 Sun Blue right here.
Well, it's too late now.
Oh, no.
But
Make lemonade.
I'm gonna highlight up anyway. However, for all you folks that say, "Oh, I'm not doing chaos, I can't paint all that trim," your boy's painting the trim 2 times. So, suck on that.
I was also hit up by a commission. I am going to be soon painting Kairos the Fate Weaver, which I'm excited for and also miserable about.
Who he is?
That is the greater demon character of Zinch.
Oh, is that the Lord of Change?
The Mac Daddy Lord of Change.
Yeah, built the other way.
Yes, with 2 heads.
That's the Shalaxi of the Keeper of Secrets.
Basically.
The Rodigus to the Great Unclean One.
Exactly.
What's the corn one?
Brand.
The Scar brand to the Bloodthirster.
Yes, and I'll be painting that for somebody in our local community soon.
Well, that'll be nice. That's a lot of feathers.
Oh boy. And yeah, the feathers is like what brings it all together. Everybody loves those feathers on those things.
Man, I feel like a lot of people miss a trick on the feathers and don't dry brush the edges a lighter color, because if you just spray that stuff, you don't get those sexy recesses the way that you'd like to have them.
Exactly. Last point of my bits box. It is March for McCrag, everybody. Show us your photos of your Ultramarines or successors. Me and Shane have chosen our successor chapters of the big blue boys of Gilliman, and will now be painting them all of March, and we'll send out photos like for this org competition for you to decide who's winner, but you don't get to know who is the one that painted them. You guys pick who's the winner, so it's not a what would you call it?
It's a blind sort of thing.
Yeah, it's not a popularity contest.
Yeah. Because I feel like I would lose. There's no way people enjoy my smugness.
Oh, what? Anyways, you guys will go on once we post the videos, the photos of those, and we will see who wins. I will say the two chapters, but I will not say who got what. One will be a mortifactor, and the other one will be an emperor spear.
Neat.
So that is everything I have.
I have more terrain to paint this week.
You need it for the new map.
So much terrain. That's my bits box. Close it. Our main topic today, we've got another top 5 list, baby.
Top 5 list.
Now, this time, you're just going to sort of comment and learn, I guess. Or do you have a top 5 list of your own?
I'm not good at teaching 40K. I'm just there to... I'm the hype man, so let's just go with what you got. Because you have so much experience teaching not only 40K, but also Judge Dredd to your spouse. You teach people in our community how to play Kill Team. You're a real, what's the word?
Teacher.
Well, I was going to say...
I've also taught guitar, piano, golf, drums, singing, many things. I have taught people. I often give lessons on the F-16 and FA-18 on the DCS flight simulator.
You're a philanthropist.
No, I don't think so.
I mean, you're kind of a philanthropist.
That usually involves donating money, and
you're
let
like
me tell you what
Bruce
I am
Wayne
not.
Of 40K.
No, see, I'm
You're the Bruce Wayne of mini war games.
I'm certainly not that. He's out here building schools. I'm like, I'll take you back to the woodshed and teach you a lesson. So
literally.
So first of all, teaching anything is its own skill, and not everybody's good at it. Just because you know a game doesn't mean you necessarily teach a game in any sort of way that anyone would want to learn it, right? Certainly not in any way that might make it seem fun enough for one to get into, and often we must be our own advocates for the games that we like, such as my playing Judge Dredd and really enjoying that. If I'm not going to show people how fun Judge Dredd is, nobody else is going to find it. So, what I'm going to give to you today are my top 5 tips and one OLI. What's an OLI, Casey?
Bonus fry.
Yes, outside looking in. It didn't quite make the top 5, but it's right there. Could go either way with number 5, but we'll see. These are my top 5 tips that I think, if you implement them, will help you teach your friends, family, granny, etc., games more successfully, so that they will learn more, you both will have more fun, and they may take the plunge themselves.
Ah, okay.
So, outside looking in, the OLI, number 1. As much reference as you can bring. So, the other day, I thought about this when I was teaching the homie Austin Kill Team. Kill Team's got a lot of little pieces. Got a lot of stuff going on. And I looked around, and we had both our Army rules printed up for our little, Kill Teams. We had 1, 2, 3 books at the ready.
Jeez.
And the reason you want to have as much reference as possible is simply so that if you are doing, let's say, a suboptimal job of explaining a rule, or you are yourself unclear on a rule, you can just grab it and read it, or your partner can grab it and read it. That way, you can avoid these feelings, and I know you've all had them, where someone tells you a rule to a game and you just go, is it? You make the stank face and think, that's how that works. And it might not be how it works. Or it may be how it works, and it's just being explained poorly, and it's coming up at an obnoxious type of time for you. But if you could grab the rule book and look at it and get some context, that kind of thing can avoid those points of friction. Now, I go on to number 5. This is the list now.
Okay, 5.
Top 5 game teaching strats. Number 5 is small forces.
Okay.
You do not want to try to teach something like 40K with a big old pile of dudes.
Ah.
You also don't want to teach kill team with 2 teams of 12. You
Yeah.
don't want to
A lot of moving parts.
Yeah, you don't necessarily even want to do something like Marvel Crisis Protocol with more than 2 or 3 guys for just a teaching game. Now, what you don't want to do is have so few that it doesn't make any sense. You need to have a little bit of variety, which comes to number 4. So number 4 is variety of actions. In 40K, we've got movement, we've got shooting, charging, fighting. Obviously, there's a command phase and the battle shock. That will come up. But you don't need to necessarily make sure you have command phase abilities that someone needs to try to remember.
Yeah.
In fact,
We talked about that 2 weeks ago. Go back and listen to that.
yeah, in fact, I would say for a teaching game, don't do that. What you should do, however, is come up with, say, 500, 750 points worth on each side, which often, because this is how math works, if you have a 2,000 point army, you can make a couple of options of 500. You're going to want to have some troops. You're going to want to have some hacky slashy boys, some shooty boys, and maybe like a tank.
Yeah, but like again on a smaller scale because this is 500 points.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you're only going to end up with 3 or 4 units.
Knowing
max.
you'd probably be just Abaddon and some Terminators.
That's not what I would do.
It's just like, hey, let me come at you with everything I have.
When I did teach Valerie the game the other day,
You're going to learn today.
I had, and you know, this is a 40K pod, so we'll talk specific. I'll give some specific examples of 40K and how I would teach that because I have. You want to have an attached character in there. So get you some troops with a minor character. Get you some other troops that, you know, if those troops chopped, these ones need to shoot, and then some sort
so
of
that
like
they can understand like abilities and stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So you can be like, what's your character do when you're fighting? All right.
Yeah.
So that's
how does he affect the game?
Exactly, and just the concept of an attached character too.
Yeah.
Because now you're going to talk about like if he dies, what happens to these other guys? Does a character get hurt first? Does a character get hurt last? Maybe something has precision. So, oh, shoot, they're getting my character.
Mm-hmm.
Yada, yada, yada.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen somebody message, hey, what happens when I've got 30 wounds on this many models, but I've only got 2 models left in a character? How do I allocate that? It's, it's something you need to learn right now.
Yeah. And so the type of forces you want 500, 750 points, they're about. Combat Patrol Box is good for this. That tends to be about 750. They know what they're doing.
They do.
And you get a little bit of variety.
Thank you, Games Workshop.
Thank you, Games Workshop.
We appreciate you.
I will say, I wouldn't recommend playing those Combat Patrol rules. That feels like a way to confuse people.
Yeah.
Wait, so 2 weeks ago, I played with these guys and they did this, and now we're playing a real game and you're telling me he does something completely different? See, that's a recipe for confusion.
Yeah.
That kind of leads me into number 3. I am really segueing nicely.
Number 3.
I feel like a mall cop with a donut.
All right, Paul Blart, hit him.
Segueing my ass off. Number 3 is realistic scenarios.
Realistic scenarios.
Realistic scenarios. So,
like make a story beforehand?
No, the opposite of that. Play the damn game.
I thought it was know the damn rules.
That
Is that going to be your number 1 again? Did I spoil it?
No. No, you did not.
This man checked his phone when I said that.
Well, I made this in 5 minutes. So,
so number 3.
Number 3 is a realistic scenario. So here's something that I don't like. When you go to a demo day or something,
right,
and somebody has come up with what they feel like is an easy scenario, where it's like, okay, just get a unit to this side of the board. That's good. That's a good theory. The problem is it doesn't have much to do with the actual game. And if somebody has got a passing interest in say 40K, and they go play that, maybe they've watched the battle reports, and they understand that just the basic concept of things are going to be able to move. Well, then just get a unit to the other side of the board is hardly a scenario that makes any sense. So what I say is throw 3 objective markers out and fight over them. 1 in each deployment zone, 1 in the middle. Run an entire whole game. Play secondaries if you want, or don't. This is what the only war mission is for. It's the full board. It's got deployment zones. It's got objectives. You score points by staying on them. It's a representative scenario of the actual game. What I did the other day is, does everybody remember their old Arcs of Omen book from 9th edition? It had 1,000-point maps and 2,000-point maps.
Yeah.
So I cracked it open, found a mission. It had like 2 objectives in the middle, 1 in each deployment zone. It had deployment zones, and it had it for the half-size map.
There you go.
So all we did was play Leviathan secondaries. We drew secondaries. We played a regular game,
But on
the half-size table that is measured out for a 1,000-point game with like balance in mind.
Okay.
And we played the primary just like it was written.
And it worked.
And it worked great. It worked exactly like you'd expect it to work. So, or no, we didn't do that. We drew the primary.
Sweet.
What we did not draw was the
Secondary.
deployment.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we drew the mission rules, we drew the primary, we drew secondaries, and then we used deployment and table layout from the Arcs of Omen book, because most of you will have that handy, and it might as well not just collect dust from now and to infinity. And that got the table size down, so it was easier to get stuff stuck in. I feel like when you're down to 750, 500 points on the big table, you can get a little bit lost in the desert if you're not careful. So that's number 3. Why and why not? To have a realistic scenario. We're getting down to business now.
I tell you what, Shane, that tea is making me sleepy.
Is it?
Like a little bit, and it's green tea.
I got here sleepy, so I feel no effects.
Man, I'm relaxed.
It's the dulcet tones of my instruction.
All right, Barry White, hit him.
Number 2. You did touch on this, but it is not number 1. Strong handle on basic rules.
Know your damn rules.
Man, let me tell you something. If you and someone want to learn a new game together,
Yeah.
then you guys are going to learn a new game together. This top 5 list is not for that. And I would say 40K on the whole is not a super great game for that.
It is not.
There's so much to it. We're 2 editions in, and sometimes I still have to go and find something. Right?
And you're the games master.
And I'm pretty good at this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
he is.
You don't want to half know 40K and try to teach it to anybody. You don't want to half know Kill Team and try to teach it to anybody. In fact, most of the Games Workshop games, I would wager you want to find somebody that's played before and them teach you how to play it. Send them this podcast and be like, hey, here's something that may help with our teaching game, just so that I can learn better when you go to teach me.
Yeah, I'm not doing it to help them out, just to help you learn.
That's right. Because you and I shared an experience once, which, never mind. I'm going to get to that on my number 1. This is going to be good. You're going to like it.
Number
But
1.
we're not there yet.
Oh, okay. Number 2.
When I say that you need to have a good handle on the basic rules, I'm not talking about like how exactly to disembark from an exploded transport. That is not a basic rule that you need to worry about. Basic rules
Gosh.
for 40K: hit, wound, save concept.
There you go.
You need to be You need to be able to explain that wound chart to people.
Yeah, that's the
If it's the same, it's a 4. If it's less, it's 3. If it's or whatever direction you're telling it.
Double is 2s, half is 6s.
Yada yada
Basically,
yada.
yeah, you know, just
You and also
nothing is more crucial to the game and basic to the game than
then
the
that
wound
siphoning
toughness
process.
rule. Yeah, it's like it's hand in hand with the game, but it's also like the most griped about thing people have. It's hardest to learn, honestly.
It, I I submit to you,
Oh boy,
it is only hard to learn because people do a crap job of teaching it.
that's fair. That's fair. Like, because everybody's got like a billion different ways of doing it.
Yeah,
And then you sometimes you see new people and they try to do what like somebody taught them how to play it, and then somebody just comes over and tries, here, let me fix that for you, let me do this. And now they've got it confused because they're being taught a second way, and you're making it worse for them, dude.
look, not to get into a whole other discussion because we
Spiel.
don't have time, but there's high school and college kids that can't read. All right, so
Yep.
quality of teaching is not a problem that happens at the friendly local game store. Okay, it's all over the place that professionals don't know how to teach stuff. All right, I've made a bunch of money teaching stuff, so take it from me or don't. But we've got 45 minutes to fill. So the main things that you're going to need to have a handle on for teaching 40K especially, but teaching anything, are the absolute basic rules. The how do I make an attack? How do I move my guys? Like the measuring is huge in 40K. So you make
use a tape measure.
yeah, well, but also you make sure to explain like, hey, when you're measuring, you go model to model and you go like front to front or middle to middle or back to back, but you can't do like front of the model then becomes the back of the model. Does that make sense what I'm telling you with no visual? Because obviously you'll set something down and show them this on the table.
Nope.
So I'm gonna measure 6 inches. I'm gonna measure from the front of my model, and then he's
Okay.
gonna move.
Base to base.
No,
Base to base.
that doesn't make any sense. What you're saying?
Base to base.
What does that mean?
From my base to your base.
What?
Exactly.
Let me explain, people. What you'll do when you're teaching somebody this, because I feel like Casey needs to hear this, is you say, okay, your guy can move 6. So like you take one model, you set him on the table. This guy's going to move 6. You measure middle of him, and then you move him, but where the tape measure ends has to be the middle of him again. Or if you want to measure front of him, you move him. Where the tape measure ends has to be the front of him. You can't steal the length of his base, the width of his base, by going, I'm going to measure from the front of him, but then I'll put him down at the back of him. You see? So I tell people, whether you measure middle to middle, front to front, back to back, is fine. But you got to do it that way. You can't switch because you're stealing movement or costing yourself movement.
Yeah, you have to stick to what you know. Don't be that guy who like.
Well, you got to do it right.
Well, yeah, do it right, but don't be that dude who like changes up the way he does it halfway through the game, just so he can score more points, or get ahead.
Right. Number 1.
Number 1.
This is the most important part of teaching something like a game,
Numero uno.
in my opinion.
The Dark Angels of the list.
No info dumps.
You take your info dump at the bathroom, sir. Or you're in my house.
Get it out of here. Get it out of here. Do you know what I mean by an info dump?
I general idea, but in this case, no.
Do you remember that time that you and I learned the game Gaslands
Ooh, yeah.
with the cars?
That was fun.
Yeah, it's a fun game. We've played it since, and it's always a good time. Do you remember how the guy taught that?
No.
He talked for 15 uninterrupted minutes
There you go.
before we ever moved a car, picked up, that game uses a lot of widgets, picked up a widget, rolled a die, did anything.
Now I see what you're saying.
He told us everything he knew about Gaslands
In 15 minutes.
in 15 minutes, and then was like, okay. And of course, we got to the table and went, so what's the first thing?
Yeah.
That's a poor job of teaching that game.
That's fair.
Could you imagine if I tried to rattle off every phase of a 40K turn and all of its steps before you ever set a model on the table? That would be impossible to keep up with.
Yeah, I mean, millennials and younger, their attention span is just destroyed, and you're sitting there talking for 15 minutes straight, uninterrupted in a noisy room.
I'm just saying, like, it wouldn't even make sense to do it that way. Okay, in the command phase, we're going to take battle shock tests, unless it's the first turn, in which case no one's battle shocked unless there's an ability. And then we're going to score points, but most of the points aren't scored on the first turn.
I'm a deep end kind of learner.
Everybody's a deep end kind of learner. Everybody is. Like, if they're not a deep end kind of learner, they're just going to get the book and read the book front to back and then go play the game. Or have the book out by themselves and learn the game. But they've come to be taught the game. The method can't be, I'm going to read you this big book. Because the book's huge. All right?
Huge.
What you do to, okay, well, Shane, if we're not going to info dump, then how do we teach them the rules? Very easy. There's only like 3 units. You're going to go through the phases. First of all, you're going to skip the first command phase unless there's a good reason. You'll say, okay, first we have the command phase, and there's nothing that you need to do for that. Then we're going to move stuff. You know what it's time to teach them then, Casey? How to move and how to measure. Where's the movement on my data card?
How is movement affected by terrain?
Whatever. And look, you only have to do that if they try to run a tank through a wall.
Yeah.
If they try to run infantry through a wall,
it's not a big deal because they can just go right through it.
And they may ask, or they may not. They may just be like, okay, my infantry, boop, boop.
Yep.
Okay.
Super simple.
Here's the thing, kids. When you're teaching somebody something, you don't have to...
No busy boards.
You don't have to point out every error. So in the case of somebody that's like, I'm going to move these infantry, and they're going to run through the wall. And they just move them through the wall because they feel like, whatever, there's a door there, even if there's not. You don't need to, at that point, stop and tell them, okay, the infantry's allowed to do that, but the vehicles aren't, but the swarms are, the monsters aren't. Leave that out. Just be like, oh, good, they moved it. If they try to move the tank through the wall, then you're like, hey, tanks can't move through walls. Okay. And you keep it moving. You get done, they've moved 3 or 4 things, now they've got a handle on how to move things. You maybe have said, 15 words. You've taught them where the movement statistic is. You've taught them how to measure. They're over there moving stuff. They know how to move now. Now it's time to shoot stuff. You tell them ranges of guns. You pick targets. They do a little measuring. Okay, it's time to roll dice. Now you're explaining
Say a little prayer.
Now you're explaining how many attacks they get and how to add that up.
Yeah.
And you're teaching. And
then
they're
the
learning.
Next turn comes around and they're doing it on their own.
And you didn't have to give
4 hours.
Yeah, you didn't have to give the Gettysburg Address on the front end. So the reason why this one came up as number 1 was because the other day when I was teaching Austin Kill Team. Kill Team is a very esoteric game. It has a draconian cover system, and it's made to be like a competitive game. So everything in it is written like legalese, And he brought guardsmen, and he had 14 little bodies against my 6 Space Marines. He did not go with number 5 of bring small forces. He brought quite a few, but it was the second time playing. And there were a lot of instances where he thought that his guys were somewhat hidden, and they were not, and I shot them to death. But I told him, I said, man, the nature of this game is that, and this is a place where an info dump could be helpful. The nature of this game is so convoluted that if I told you on the front end where all the pitfalls and bodies were buried, you wouldn't be able to keep that in your head and learn and play the game. So the only way to get all this sort of minutia is just to play it more than once or twice. And that is an info dump worth making to people if that's the kind of game you're about to embark on teaching them. You see what I'm saying there? 40K I don't think is necessarily that kind of game.
Yeah.
The basics of how it's going to clunk along, there are not going to be very many gotchas that feel any different than a regular old turn.
Exactly.
Because the sort of stuff that is a gotcha in 40K, like I recently played those new fancy Drakari that can jump out, shoot some crazy las cannon type things, and then jump back into cover where you cannot target them because they're behind line of sight blocking walls again.
It's very Drukari.
That and that's a gotcha of the highest order.
It's a gotcha.
But if it was the first time I had ever played, I'd have been like, dang, that's hard to play against. But but I wouldn't necessarily feel hard.
That's not broken at all.
Well, you don't know what you don't know. So I wouldn't necessarily feel hard done by that. I'd be like, okay, that's the thing you guys do, and maybe I've got some stuff. I would later discover that I don't have anything for that. But that's neither here nor there because we're just learning the game. So no info dumps is my number one strategy for teaching the game. You just have to get into it. You've got to play turn one. You've got to
deep dive.
You've got to let people get their hand in the dirt, or else they'd be better off just reading the book by themselves and trying to retain that and then going to try to play without your help. These have been my top 5 strategies for better game teaching. I think they're good. Like I say, I've taught many different things, and these sorts of
the philanthropist.
These sorts of thinking, right? This I want to scale down the thing, but I want to keep the spirit of the whole. I want to get you doing the thing, but I don't want to bog you down with extra stuff, and jargon, and whatnot. Right?
Yeah.
You want to trim it down where it is still fundamentally the thing that it will be, but without getting into, like, just ignore funny edge cases the first few times. It will not hurt anything. If you've brought regular old troops and a vehicle, you're not going to have many of those anyway. But that's what I got. Once again, you can take it or leave it. Do you have our featured Space Marine segment for this week?
I do have our featured Space Marine segment.
I thought you did. It's now time, ladies and gentlemen, 40K Fanatics, for our featured Space Marine segment of the week. And it's brought to you by all of our social media and YouTube places that we exist. Our various entities. Our various echoes in the warp. Brings you exclusively our Space Marine segment.
Really rolling that out. Okay. Did you know, Shane?
Certainly not.
That each legion has the gene seed of a prospective Primarch, but there is one chapter with the Emperors. See you later, guys.